Today I talk with Edison Lim, co-founder and CEO at Suberra. Suberra is a Web3 payment platform that'll help you accept crypto payments for one-time purchases or subscriptions from your protocol, website, or dApp. Edison shares his founder story, including a forced hard pivot after the collapse of Terra. Now, there are a few important lessons here for any potential founder in the audience. First, there will always be things that are out of your control. In Suberra's case, the entire ecosystem they were building on collapsed in an instant. If you're going to build, you have to accept this reality. Second, you can recover from it. But, and this is a big but, the idea still has to make sense. Edison and his partner reassessed and pivoted after the Terra collapse. The process they went through was a good one, and he'll share about that today. I have no disclosures and no conflicts of interest for today's episode. I haven't worked with Suberra, I haven't used Suberra, and this is the first time Edison and I met. But I'm glad we did. He's got a great story, and I'm thrilled to share it with you. Welcome to Ready Layer 2 with me, Git.Small. This is a podcast for the founders, innovators, and experimenters building the future of Web3 on Arbitrum. Edison, welcome to the show.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, Don.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. So happy for you to take the time. You got a really interesting backstory for, the audience we're trying to serve here. And I think this could be a very valuable episode. What I want to start for context with is, could you just tell us, high level, what is Suberra? What are you guys doing? And who is it for?
Okay, so Suberra is a payments infrastructure that allows businesses to accept cryptocurrency from anywhere for anything. So by anywhere, I mean that they can accept cryptocurrencies from any chain, any wallet. So today we have support over 100 plus wallets out there. And you can do payments for anything. So even for one-time payment, e-commerce stores, subscriptions, in-game access passes, whatever that you can think of, we try to bring that to you. So it is a complete payment platform, end-to-end, so that businesses and merchants can focus on their business.
Very nice. Now you say any chain, anywhere. So if I'm building the platform and I want to use your service to collect payment for it, can my customers can come on and they can pay with ETH, they can pay with Bitcoin, they can pay with Solana. Is it like any chain that way? Are there limits to it in any way?
That's like the long-term vision is to really scale out to like different chains, but it's not that easy to do it for like day one, because for us to do many of the transactions that we do, we need to deploy on-chain contracts to enable payments. So right now we are only on EVM chains, in particular Arbitrum, Avalanche, and Polygon, Ethereum. And we're looking to scale out to other EVM chains before we think about scaling out to other non-EVM chains. Yeah, so even with right now, even with these few chains that we support, it's pretty much majority of the ecosystem. Whichever that, if you're a business that just want to accept cryptocurrency, you can consider us and you can accept across like different networks.
Very good. So are you exclusively like a B2B business, if you will, or are there any of your services that just the average user out on Web3 could take advantage of? Is it all
four? I think, so I really think like B2B is an interesting term, because like in the normal software companies, right, we think about B2B as like large corporations that are like accepting payments. But these days, especially like in the modern age, we have like lots of entrepreneurs that are just like, some of them could just be a one-man, one developer who's like trying to monetize their business, or it could just be someone trying to sell like merchandise online, and they can use us to collect payments. So we are not restricted to just like big enterprises and businesses. In fact, individuals who just want to accept payments for something that they offer, be it goods or services, merchandise, it could be a software product, they could use us to collect payments.
Yeah, right on. Saying B2B actually felt weird, and it is. Most of my work, especially in podcasting, all of my work before the start of this has been in the Web 2 world, and that's how my brain still frames it. So I kind of like that you reacted to that. Like, that's a weird way to put it. So it's not B2B in that traditional sense, but it's somebody else who's doing something. Somebody else has built something. Somebody else who's selling something wants to use your tool to collect payments from their customers. So there is always maybe a P2P protocol to protocol like that. Okay, very good, very good. So I got the right framing at least.
Yeah, this is like something that we struggle with a lot. Like, because I was like, are we a B2B? Yes, we are B2B, but and you're expecting like someone like a big enterprise to come in, but it's not really that case, because like these days businesses are really lean. Like one-man businesses are so common these days. But I think what people can think of us is, if you start out like an internet business, you want to start collecting payments, you might look into Stripe or Checkout.com. but maybe they don't really like. I mean, even though Stripe is great, I love Stripe a lot when I was like doing it on my own business. But I feel that in crypto we need the equivalent of that, because like
Yeah.
the rails in crypto payments is just not as advanced as what we have in credit cards.
Yeah, no, honestly, I can
Mm.
immediately see a whole bunch of use cases just thinking about the idea of like subscription payments is really interesting.
Mm.
You might be somebody, you could even be like a content producer, an artist, or something like that. Has, a lot of, I do a lot of art collecting on Ethereum and a few other chains. And artists will have these tokens that are like my collector tokens, and they'll do airdrops. You can almost have like a subscription, if you will. I'm going to produce
Mm.
something new every month, good online magazine, piece of artwork, whatever service. You pay for it monthly in USDC or Ethereum or something like that, and push that out to you every month. Things so that's stuff like that starts to come to mind. What are the use cases that you're seeing people deploy right now with your platform?
When I say payments is very large and like kind of like all encompassing. In fact, crypto payments is not really like extremely new per se, because we have like platforms like Coinbase Commerce that is like doing quite a fine job in doing one-time payment. So where Suberra really stands out is that because like we are targeting to become like the go-to place for crypto payments, and we don't want to just restrict to one-time payment. We handle this thing that many company and products can do, which is subscriptions. On-chain subscriptions are very different from one-time payment. Like, let me just go into the terminologies of that. Is that when we take crypto payments, it's usually a push base, because in this sense, like if I want to send you money, I have to sign a transaction and send it on-chain. But that's not going to work if I have to do monthly subscription to you. Let's say if I try to subscribe to like Telegram, for example, I really don't want to be initiating that transfer every month. So it's a pain in the ass, right? Because I'm not sure whether like how many of you empathize with that. If you have to pay a credit card bill manually, on some months you're just gonna forget about it. So
Yeah,
you just
anything you
kind
got
of
to
want to auto
remember
pay
is going to
that,
be
right?
trouble.
You're not gonna
Yeah.
remember it. But doing subscriptions on chain is not natively supported, because like transactions have to be initiated by the user. So
Hmm.
what we try to do is to build a better pool-based payment infra so that we can make that happen. So pool-based payment means that instead of initiating the transaction to you, this time around is that I authorize someone to process the transaction. So in this case, it's going to be Suberra, because like Suberra gets the authorization to pull money from your account every month. So you can define a set amount every month, then that's all that Suberra can deduct from your account into the merchant's account directly. So we are non-custodial, we don't hold the funds, and we can make it repeat every month without having to require the user to do anything. So in
Hmm.
this way, we feel that with this solution, it really brings us to an experience that is more similar to credit cards. So
Right.
when we use like to subscribe to things like Netflix, we put our credit cards there, and we just forget about it, right? It is great for both merchants and users, because the merchant does not have to care about the collecting of the account receivables. At the
Hmm.
same time, the users also do not have to pay. So we want to build
Right
the
on.
same user experience in payments into like into the on-chain, and just to make the commerce in the Web3 even more mainstream than what it is today.
So basically, what I'm doing as the end user, if I'm going to a website that uses Suberra to take my payments, I'm signing up for a subscription. I'm signing up for a subscription to Telegram. I am authorizing your contract to
Mm-hmm.
access my USDC, let's say, and in some certain amount, and then on some schedule, monthly, whatever my agreement with Telegram is, your contract is accessing my funds and moving them where they need to go. Is that the gist of it?
Yes, that's the gist of
Okay.
it. And we have
Okay.
taken many like precautions to make sure that it is like safe and secure for the user, because the user can define like a set spending limit that we
Mm-hmm.
can draw from the account. So let's say if you're subscribing to maybe like Netflix for $10 a month, then $10 is all that Suberra can deduct from your account every month.
Mm-hmm.
And every month it kind of like resets, so that in the next month we can draw exactly like $10, right? We cannot
Mm-hmm.
draw anything more than that. I think that's the beauty of what we've built, is to really expedite and bring the experience of crypto payments more similar to credit cards.
Gotcha. That's interesting. So, how does the authorization for the contract reset each month? If I go in there and I say
Mm.
you can take $10 USDC, once you take that 10, is it 10 at a time that I'm authorizing you for? Is that the deal? Or like, how does that control work for me?
So we have a EIP standard called EIP 5827. So it is already on the Ethereum forums already. So we are like getting feedback on that. But how it essentially works is that we have this concept of a auto-renewable allowances, which means that let's say, given an analogy of like you're subscribing to Netflix for $10 a month. You first give allowances for $10, and then Suberra will process that payment. So on the first day, that money gets transferred to the merchant, and the remaining allowance that Suberra can deduct from your account is now zero. And over time, we have this concept called recovery rate that will slowly recover that remaining allowances back to the maximum, which is $10 a month. So an analogy that I'll kind of put there is like a health bar when you play a video game. So you have a full bar of health, and whenever whenever the Suberra deducts the funds, it goes back to zero, and it slowly recover back to the limit. And we do that in this reason. We do that in this way for a few reasons. One is that unlike the normal kind of like credit cards, we cannot just do a reset every month. And because that's going to be very gas inefficient, and that's not really ideal for most users. So with this concept of called renewable allowances, we can set this to recover back to the limit, so that we do not have to incur additional gas costs to recover back to the limit every month. So that's how
Oh,
it
good point.
essentially works. Yep.
Yeah, you always got to be thinking about the gas fees, especially if you're trying to make this feel what people are used to enable mass adoption or not. So that's a really good point. So you said that's a proposal right now, and that's working its way through the dockets. So today, just for my education, because I'm still learning, honestly, with all this
Mm.
stuff, is if I authorize $10, that's one time. Once you consume that $10 on the contract or access that $10 on the contract, it's gone.
Mhm.
And then I have to authorize more. Is that right? It works
No,
today?
yeah. So it is not in that sense, because all the user have to do is to authorize just once, and
Mm-hmm.
then like we will take care of that. Like once you authorize that for once, and then this will be kind of like running by its own on chain. So whenever Suberra deducts the funds, then the allowance will reset back to zero. If Suberra don't ever touch the funds, then it will remain at the maximum allowances, which means that allowances are different from balance, because allowances means that I'm authorized to take your money. Yeah, so in that case, it is something that is like running by itself on chain. It does not require any intervention, and it
Okay.
protects the user, because the alternative of that is that we have seen people who try to do like recurring payments when we think about all these like problems for a long time. So right now, like the two kind of alternatives that people have is that it's either they give very high allowances, so they can give infinite or really
Yep.
high allowances, and that's really harmful for the user, because the
Yep.
only thing that is standing between you and your funds is just like the team, and the team can
Yeah,
be
right on. Yeah,
yeah,
that always
yeah, yeah.
terrifies me when I see those
It
giant
terrifies
limits.
me,
I'm
right?
like, no,
Yeah.
I'm not authorizing that.
Yeah, so some payments like company, they like some payments platform, they require a very large approval, and that's not really great for a user. And
Right.
some of them will require you to lock money into a contract, which is also equally bad, because the contract can have, I mean, depending on the implementation, there may be ways that the contract can be that someone else can withdraw the funds from the contract completely. So we believe that our current method, which is like renewable allowances, is probably the best approach going forward when it comes to recurring subscriptions.
That's really
Mm,
interesting. And it's like anything else, like once you start trying to solve all the nuance of a particular problem, you find all of these things got to happen. And I could continue to ask questions on this now because I'm interested for like an hour itself, but I want to get to other things too. So what I'm going to say to the listener and give you the chance to confirm and agree with me is that what Suberra is doing is building a platform that's going to allow you to integrate these types of payment processing into your applications. And
mhm,
Suberra is going to continue to work to make that more efficient, more usable, safer for the end users. That's the business you all are going to stay in, is trying
mm,
to make that component better and better so that I, as a builder, don't necessarily have to
mhm.
figure out all of this nuance. Is that a fair summation of it?
Yeah, that's a fair summation. So when we say like builders, right, we are like looking to few kind of like builders, because there could be a merchant who wants to accept payments, that's just pure straight card payments, or there could be some other developer that just want to make use of this recurring nature of transactions to build a
Mm-hmm.
product. So let's say that if someone is thinking about building a robo advisor and require people to DCA into this robo advisor, they can use our contracts to do the recurring portion of that.
Mm-hmm.
So our final contracts, I mean, we call it final contracts because which is the renewable allowances, is really open source and is already deployed on Arbitrum. Anyone can interact with that. It's permissionless. So if you want to make sure that users can still get a spend limit, they can leverage on that to build their apps. They can build things like DCA, they can build things like P2P recurring payments, etc. So guy is the limit. Yeah.
They're on Arbitrum, Avalanche, Polygon.
Yep.
More to come probably in the future, but that's where you're at right now. But that's not where you started. So that's what I want to transition to is you've been at this for a while. This is not a brand new company. You've been building for a while. You started on Terra. I want to talk through that a little bit because you had obviously a forced massive pivot not too long ago. And I'd like to just have you help the listener understand, somebody who's thinking about building something themselves or in that process. I have a feeling your journey will be instructive to them. So let's talk about that a little bit. When did you start thinking about building Suberra in the first place?
So Suberra has been like a very like long-term pain point for me and my co-founder. So we were very early in crypto. So like personally, I'm in crypto since 2018. Was working in another blockchain company called Zilliqa as a developer and kind of like developer evangelist for a long time. So I was there for 4 years, and in the period of time, we also got into we were right on time for DeFi summer. And during those times, there were just like so many things that's ongoing and so many data that we want. So me and my other co-founder, we were both like actively like playing around with like projects and protocols, and we need data. And some of this data is not free because when something is really good, they tend to charge for that, which is reasonable, right? Because like you devote your time and time into it. And we want to play with crypto, and we realized that we couldn't. So in fact, like even for some of those platforms, like for example, like Tencent, which I was trying to subscribe, I realized that there isn't a way to subscribe with crypto. So in the end, we figured out that by asking the team, it's just not that they do not want to accept crypto, but it's just so difficult to do subscriptions. That's why they only do one time for one whole year of subscription. And we say that, hey, we're definitely going to build something that is maybe scalable for businesses to accept subscription payments. So that's why we started. In the beginning, we were trying to find a home base, but then I think Arbitrum is not where it is today. Arbitrum is still very new at the point of time.
Right.
So Terra was the kind of like the very like cutting edge of blockchain. And we were inspired by the mission that like the chain could be like for everyday payments. That's one. And number two is that because there's a platform called Anchor, which gives like 20% APY. So our product back in Terra was like similar to something like Alchemy's, which is like a self-repaying loan kind of idea that if you put your deposits in, it will generate interest, and you can use the interest to offset other things. So an analogy that we always say is that to pay for your Netflix subscription for life, all you need is $800 in the contracts, and you can enjoy Netflix subscriptions for life. So that was the idea that we started. So it's like a self-repaying kind of things that we were using the EUs to pay for your subscription. So we went live in March last year after building that out for a few months. And when we live, like everything was like fantastic. We have it's a adrenaline rush because we get like so many users like from day one is like using it. We get it into a 6-digit volume within like less than 30 days. And all is
Nice.
good. Yeah.
Yeah,
Until
that's
one day
exciting.
in like until one day in May, the Terra collapsed, and we
Yeah.
collapsed along with them because our project was on Terra itself. So during those time, I still recall vividly that it was one of the kind of like darkest moments of our time because because I mean I also went quite deep into the Terra, and like refusing to believe that the UST is depegging. So
Yeah.
personally, I lost a lot of my own money into the whole Terra incident. And second is that the product is pretty much in shambles, and we have this like contract that allows people to put UST in, and many of them are kind of like trying to get their funds out, which is like something that we were helping them a lot with the support requests, as we were also struggling with our own personal struggles with the Terra incident.
Yeah.
And also I think that just within the team itself, many people are very lost. I still remember that during those days on the first day that it collapsed, it was a Monday. On that day itself, we have 2 interns that came for the first day of work. So everything is all at once. I've been looking back, I'm like very surprised at how we managed to survive that.
Yeah, you
But it
talk
was
about
like
highs and lows, man. You launch, you're getting the users coming in, you got some volume, things are good, you got interns starting, and then the thing crashes on you that quick. And yeah, like you just said, you're getting hit from all angles too. It's not your business is suffering, your customers are suffering, you're personally suffering from being invested in the community elsewhere. Yeah, that's a lot to deal with. What did you do to hold it all together? Like how did you and your co-founder kind of stick it out?
I think that at least, I mean, for what it's worth it, I think it's really good to have another co-founder who is really supportive as well. And we were pretty much in the same journey together. We understand each other's pain point. He's also affected by Terra personally as well. And we just encourage each other to keep going. And I think that during those days that we also have a very good, strong group of like investors who are very like understanding. Which is
That's
like
good.
Delphi and also like Alex from Nansen is also one of our angel investors as well. And during those days, like they actually help us a lot with just like overcoming the struggles and trying to survive, like trying to think about survival from there. Some of them were even that nice to say that, okay, take some time off and just be calm and think about things. So
Yeah.
that's what we did. After we handle all the other issues with making sure that all our users manage to withdraw the money
Yeah.
safely and recover whatever that they can get from UST, we went back into like brainstorming and thinking about what we want to build next. And I think that session really helped a lot because when we were thinking about what to do next, we revisited our original ideas about why we actually started this journey on a startup. Not as a
Okay.
project, but as a startup, like together as co-founders. So, and we figured that because like we still believe in the idea of crypto payments, we
Yeah.
still believe that like crypto is going to be the way for the future of Web3. And we just kept going. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we just
So was
kept
that
going.
assessment kind of the moment where you step back and said, was that the question? Like, do we really still want to do this?
Yes,
Is it
it was
time
a
to
test
quit?
of conviction.
Or is the
Yeah.
idea good enough to continue and try to pivot and fight through it? That was the assessment you
That was the moment that it
That's
was
so important. And it's so
extremely
smart
conviction.
too, because sometimes like you fall in love with your idea and you just want to make it work. And I've been working on it for 6 months or a year or whatever it is, and I don't want to give it up because I invested too much. That's like super smart, mature, like as business people to think about it that way and say, yeah, maybe that's true, but let's reassess and let's make sure that's still true today, not just because of sunk costs and sunk effort and sunk emotions. This is why I call that out for, again, anybody
Yeah.
thinking about starting something up like this. Like, careful,
It-
love your idea, but don't be completely in love with your idea. You gotta
Yes.
continue to be rational. Sorry, carry on. So you guys started adjusting and thinking, what are the pathways forward?
Yeah, I mean, for good or for worse is that we do not have any legacy to carry with it because our product went down with Terra.
Clean slate.
It was a clean slate. We have one chance to think about a complete pivot, but we went back into the same kind of like, it's not exactly the same because like we no longer believe in the like self-repaying redirection narrative that was really popular during the DeFi summer because the
Okay.
API was like crazily high. But we believe in the base like primitive about just like, acceptance alone. And then and we think that just building a great platform for merchants is already hard enough to do, and we were more focused on that. So like instead of like trying to become like only on one chain, which is on Terra previously, now we were trying to really address the pain point of merchant, which is that merchants they just want revenue. And some of these users can be from any chain, right? They can be on Ethereum as well if they want to pay the fees for the gas costs. We don't really, I think in the long term, we just want to really give merchants a tool that they can accept any chain, but it's really up to them to select which chain they want to support.
Now, to make that decision, you're making the decision to do a whole bunch more work, right? To be able to service multiple chains and build for multiple chains. So what was the trade-off assessment there to say, obviously, the more chains that you can operate on, the more potential, the more access you have to customers, the more potential you have, but the more work you have to do, the more support you have to do. So what was the, like, how did you strike that balance? How did you decide on, we're going to do these 3 to start with? Actually, I'm making an assumption. Did you decide at that point to do all 3 that you're on right now, or did you do one at a time?
No, the story was that we were only thinking about launching on Polygon initially. So why Polygon was that because a few of our merchants that we managed to convince in the early days, when we asked them which one do you want, they always say Polygon because it's natural because Polygon has the most number of like volume and the users. So that's where we were on, and I think that some of them also want Avalanche. I think Arbitrum was like kind of like we discovered that by ourselves. Is that when we tried out on different EVM chain as we were building, we were also thinking about how do we design our system that we can scale to different EVM chains, and that's when we actually try it out on different platforms. And as a user, I was a fan of Arbitrum because of the fast like transaction speed. And after we managed to deploy it, we realized that just how easy it is to deploy our app that was like originally optimized for like Polygon to be on Arbitrum as well. And we just,
Okay,
like,
so the porting was
think that there's,
pretty
like,
easy to bring it over.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
as long as you're on like EVM and you're not using any crazy kind of like chain specific things to do your contracts and logic, it's actually portable like easily across a different chain.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, there's like
interesting. Is that
some
true
slight.
going from like L1 to L2 as well? No major difference there?
Yep, yep.
Okay.
As long as there's no, every chain has a slight nuances in the solidity, or maybe
Okay.
some gas that you have to handle. But that's like very small compared to having to rewrite a full contract on a different language.
Gotcha.
So
So
I
you
think
don't have
on that front,
three separate code bases right now. You've got a
one
platform
code base.
with some minor
Yeah,
modifications depending on which blockchain you're operating on.
yeah, right.
Okay. That's very cool. All right. You're live on all three of these right now. So anybody listening that's interested in using Suberra on any of these three platforms, it's live and ready to go today. Okay.
Yep,
Very
it
cool.
is.
Tell me a little bit more. And I'm not fishing for any particular answers here. I'm only want to know if any of this, if anything like this exists. Are there any particular, like working across the three blockchains that you've worked on? And I even go back to thinking about your experience with Terra. Was there any particular advantage that you saw over any one of these chains? Something good that was good in Arbitrum that was less good elsewhere, or something maybe that was better elsewhere and less good on Arbitrum? Does anything like that kind of come to mind? Any particular advantages or disadvantages to Arbitrum L2 in particular?
Okay. So I think we go in terms of there are things that we can see right away, which is like something that we can feel as a user. So we call it those like practical kind of like pros and cons. So the pros of like Arbitrum, at least like for us, is definitely that it's EVM compatible. So in fact, Arbitrum is always like they're going to really make EVM equivalence the flaw, as like Steven would have said. And I think that's really important for us because we do not want to rewrite in a different language right now.
Right.
And the biggest draw of Arbitrum is that the transaction speeds are just like so fast. So in
Okay.
fact that we were even thinking about, we can even go crazy about thinking about working on some really big ideas on like card issuance that is running on, because like transaction speed can be in less than 1 second for finality. And that's great because like we can get these like transactions like in the real world really quickly. Let's say that if I hypothetically issue a card, I'm not going to wait in the coffee store for 20 seconds to get it confirmed. What I want to do is to tap and get it confirmed, and I get my coffee and then go. So that few second difference makes a big difference when you're in the real life. Like when you're online, it doesn't really matter because you can just like alternate tab, scroll Twitter while you're waiting for transactions to confirm. But you can't really do it like in real life. So we were thinking about, I think when it comes to cons itself, like that, because of the layer 2 design where Arbitrum, like where the fees, essentially some part of it will actually go into an Ethereum fee. So it is by nature, it is more dynamic. By nature, it is going to be more pricey compared to what in Polygon. So even though I'm a fan of Arbitrum speed, but the transaction fees are also just a bit more expensive than Polygon. But it is not a deal breaker because it's still way cheaper than Ethereum. And it's
Yeah, 100%.
and I think that Arbitrum is like the cost that we pay for gas is like somewhat in the acceptable range for like micro payments.
All right, very good. And to listener who's thinking about who maybe hasn't started building on Arbitrum yet, are there any particular resources that you point them to, or any advice, like any kind of like, here's how I would get started if I'm getting into this for the first time?
The resources for Arbitrum is somewhat mostly the same as what you get in like normal Solidity or like smart contract programming. And you get the same tools essentially. So you can use the tools like Alchemy, Infura for your node, or you could even use Tenderly for your smart contract debugging. So Arbitrum is very well supported across the different chains. And I think that like you really just have to be careful of the smart contract nuances and the gas fees in Arbitrum, because that can be slightly different depending on where it came from. So like the way the gas is like calculated on Arbitrum is a bit different compared to like say Ethereum. So that's like an area that you have to be aware of. And but thankfully is that most of the things are actually on the Arbitrum website. So they have a developer portal that listed down the kind of like nuances in Solidity when it comes to Arbitrum. So you just have to be careful of things like timestamp, be careful of things like the blocks, because they have like different blocks. If you're building a relayer, if you're building a bridge, that can get more complicated because of the different L1 and L2 messaging. Yeah, and all these things are being captured on the website, so you can have a look.
Okay, very cool. And now, what would you say in terms of your rollout right now and your adoption? Where are you getting the most traction out of the three chains that you're on?
So right now, like I think it's still pretty early to see like where things are, but we have heard many good things about Arbitrum that users who try it out, they are so impressed with the whole experience. In fact, some of them even say that it's faster than a credit card because let's say if you go to e-commerce store, you put a credit card number there, it's probably going to take you like 5 or 6 seconds before you get a confirmation. But if you use us, it's pretty much confirm, click, and you're done, like less than 3 seconds. So the speed user experience is really insane. Yeah, so I think that we're really looking forward to bring like more people into Arbitrum, because that's where we believe as a team it has the best experience when it comes to checking out. Yeah, so and we are like just like rolling out more products. So depending on the merchants, if we can see like someone who wants to collect payment on Arbitrum, you can really consider integrating with us, because if you integrate with us, you can accept payments on Arbitrum, which you can't really do so on Coinbase. So I hope that
Right.
there's enough draw for like, some people to come over and use us for the acceptance.
Yeah, right on.
Mm.
And then if somebody is interested in doing that, how would you direct them now? Like what's the best way for them to start looking at Suberra, start integrating it, et cetera? Where would you send them?
All right, so like maybe the first step is that you can head over to Suberra.com, Subera.com. So we have a demo there. You can like play around with the demo and see how the whole process works. It's a test net. It does not require funds from your wallet. And you can see how the whole transaction go through in a guestless checkout. It's guestless. And then you can also read our docs on how do we integrate with your platform. And if you really need help, you can reach out to us on the demo call as well, because like we have a link that you can book a time with us, and we can walk you through on how you can actually get started with Suberra.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll link all that stuff up in the show notes. And then obviously I really appreciate you coming and sharing your experiences with the listener, trying to help them out. Is there anything that the community can do to help Suberra? Is there, do you guys have roadblocks? Is there something that, I know it's a weird question, but is there anything like that you guys still are trying to figure out, or people you're trying to get in touch with? Anything like that we can help you with?
So we want to get like more merchants to start accepting payments on Arbitrum. So if you know of like a service that you want to pay with crypto and you only want to pay on Arbitrum, just like tag the merchant, just tag Suberra on the merchant's page, so that at least like we know who they are and we can target them as well. So
Okay.
yeah, if you're like an Arbitrum believer and you want to see payments, where just like tag the merchants that you want to subscribe to, and we'll hopefully get it out. So right now, like today, right, you can subscribe to things like Crunchyroll and Telegram Premium on Arbitrum. So people who are a subscriber on both of them, you can subscribe with USDC on this for Crunchyroll and Telegram Premium.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, that's very cool. And then where can people go to connect with you online?
Okay, I have a Twitter, which you can follow me, which is Edison0SYZ. Or you could also follow our company like Twitter, which is Suberra Protocol, and it's on Twitter as well. So we have a pretty active presence on Twitter. Yeah, feel free to give us a follow.
All right, right on. All that stuff again will be linked up down below in your show notes. Edison, really appreciate the time here today.
All right, thanks for having me, Don. Yeah, have a good one.
Thank you for listening to Ready Layer 2. If you're an Arbitrum builder with a story to share, then hit me up on Twitter at GitSmall, GITSMOL. Learn more at gitsmall.com.